Earth's morning sky had never looked so beautiful, yet that morning it felt strange to Hyen-woo. He stood on the balcony of his small apartment in Seoul, gazing at the sunrise. Birds chirped as usual, and the city slowly woke to its daily rhythm. But Hyen-woo noticed something unusual. Far beyond the clouds, tiny silver shapes shimmered in the sunlight. At first he thought it was an optical illusion, but as he squinted he realized these were not birds or planes. They were massive ships, moving too fast and too silently for any human aircraft. Hyen-woo rushed inside and grabbed his sister Gia, who was preparing breakfast. "Look at this," he shouted, pointing to the sky. Ga froze, staring through the window. Her eyes widened. Those aren't planes." "What are they?" she whispered. Neither of them knew the answer, but soon the news confirmed their fears. Television channels and radio stations began broadcasting. Breaking news: unidentified alien ships had entered Earth's atmosphere. Government officials appeared on screens around the world, trying to calm people, but their voices trembled. The ships were enormous, dwarfing skyscrapers, and their movements suggested a level of technology far beyond anything humans had ever imagined. In the streets, people stopped their daily routines and looked up in awe and terror. Some began recording videos, hoping to capture evidence of what was happening. Others ran to find shelter, their panic spreading like wildfire. Hyen-woo and Ga huddled around the small television in their apartment. The anchors struggled to find words, switching between feeds from major cities showing alien ships hovering silently above landmarks. "We can't fight them," a news reporter said, voice shaking. "All conventional weapons have been tested, but they seem completely invulnerable. The government urges everyone to stay calm and stay inside." Hyen-woo clenched his fists. He was an engineer. He had spent years building machines, robots, and small satellites. He refused to believe humanity was powerless. "There has to be a way," he muttered. Ga put a hand on his shoulder. "Hyen-woo, we are just ordinary people. What can we do?" Before he could answer, the first attack began. Cities across the world lit up as alien energy beams struck buildings, vehicles, and communication towers. Explosions rocked the ground, sending smoke and dust into the sky. In Seoul, glass shattered and fires erupted in neighborhoods. People screamed as chaos consumed the streets. Emergency sirens blared. Hyen-woo grabbed Jia's hand and pulled her to safety. Away from the windows, from their apartment, they could hear cries, alarms, and the sounds of cars crashing. The city seemed to collapse in an instant. Yet even amid the terror, Hyen-woo noticed something. Some civilians were not running blindly. They were helping others, guiding the injured and protecting children. He realized that humanity's strength did not lie only in weapons, but in courage and compassion. Hyen-woo and Jia managed to leave their apartment and joined a crowd moving toward a nearby shelter. Streets were littered with debris, fires burned everywhere, and the air smelled of smoke and metal. Hyen-woo saw police officers trying to maintain order, but even they were powerless against the aliens' sheer firepower. Inside the shelter, the atmosphere was tense. Families huddled together, sharing water and blankets. Some people cried quietly, while others whispered about how hopeless things seemed. God tended to a small boy who had a scraped knee. Hyen-woo tried to think of a plan. "We need to understand them," he said. "We can't fight what we don't know." Over the next few hours, news continued to arrive. Scientists and military officials were baffled. Alien ships had surrounded major cities and were systematically attacking strategic points. Attempts to communicate with them failed. Satellites went offline. It became clear that humanity was facing a highly advanced and aggressive enemy. Despite the fear, some people began organizing. In the shelter, groups formed to share information, first aid, and supplies. Hyen-woo met Min-seok, a former pilot, and Boara, a physicist. Min-seok spoke about flight patterns he had noticed from the alien ships, and Boara theorized about the energy source powering their weapons. Together, they began to devise small experiments, trying to find weaknesses in the alien technology. Hyen-woo could not stop thinking about the first attack. He remembered the way the alien beams had cut through steel and concrete as if they were paper. He thought about guests, about the people in the shelter, and about the millions still outside. He realized that fear alone could not defeat the invaders. Humanity needed courage, intelligence, and cooperation. Meanwhile, the alien ships hovered above Earth, almost motionless. Their presence was oppressive. News footage showed them over New York, Paris, Tokyo, and other major cities. It seemed they had one purpose: to dominate and destroy. Yet for the first time, a few small human victories began to emerge. Pilots who had escaped the initial attacks reported that some of the alien drones had slower response times when distracted. Civilians had found creative ways to block energy beams using everyday materials. These small acts gave Han-Wu hope. The night fell, and the city was unrecognizable. Fires burned across the skyline, and smoke filled the streets. Yet, in the darkness, humans lit candles, formed small groups, and helped one another. Ga comforted children, while Han-Wu and Min-seok discussed possible strategies. Biora drew diagrams, explaining that the alien ship's shields might have a weak frequency that humans could exploit. Han-Wu felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. He had never faced such an enemy before, but he knew humanity had never backed down in the face of impossible odds. "We may be small," he said to his group, "but we have something they don't understand. We have imagination. We have courage. We have each other." By the next morning, the destruction was widespread, but humanity was not defeated. Makeshift resistance groups were forming in multiple cities. Volunteers provided aid, repaired infrastructure, and observed alien movements. Han-Wu and his companions decided to take their experiments further. If they could find a vulnerability, they could give humans a fighting chance. Across the globe, other ordinary humans were rising to the challenge. Teachers, engineers, firefighters, and students became leaders in their communities. Ordinary people were showing extraordinary bravery. Despite the overwhelming power of the alien ships, humanity refused to surrender. Han-Wu looked at the sky once more, noting the massive forms of the alien motherships above. They were dangerous, but not invincible. He knew the coming days would be harder, that the alien attacks would intensify, and that the survival of millions depended on what humans did next. Yet, he also knew something the invaders did not. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and united by more than fear. The first day of the invasion ended with devastation, but also with a spark of hope. Humans had been tested, and while many lives were lost, the spirit of resistance had been born. In shelters, apartments, and streets, people whispered to one another about plans, strategies, and dreams of fighting back. Han-Wu and Ga, alongside Min-seok and Biora, pledged to do everything in their power to protect Earth. As night fell, distant explosions lit up the horizon, but the human heart burned brighter. This was only the beginning. The Galaxy Empire had struck Earth, but humanity was not powerless. In the coming days, people would discover the true power that lay within themselves, and the alien invaders would come to understand that Earth was not a planet to be conquered isolely. Han-Wu looked at Ga and said, "We can do this. We have to. Humanity can't give up now." And somewhere in the dark sky, the alien ships hovered, unaware that their greatest challenge was not just human technology, but human spirit itself. The morning after the first attack, the city of Seoul was quiet in an unnatural way. Smoke still rose from burned buildings, and the streets were littered with debris. Survivors cautiously moved about, helping those who had escaped the initial strikes. Han-Wu and Ga stepped out of the shelter, guided by Min-seok and Biora, determined to see the extent of the destruction and find ways to help. The sky remained filled with alien ships, hovering like dark shadows over the city. Han-Wu noticed how people had started to come together in small groups. Strangers were sharing water, first aid supplies, and food. The fear that had gripped the city the day before was still there, but it was tempered by a sense of solidarity. He realized that even though humanity was facing a far superior enemy, people were beginning to adapt. Min-seok led the small team through the streets, pointing out areas where survivors had gathered. "We need to find a safe place to set up a communication center," he said. If we can organize, even in small ways, we can start to fight back. And we need to understand their technology. The more we know, the better chance we have. As they walked, they came across a group of volunteers, clearing rubble from a collapsed building. Among them was Daehyun, a firefighter who had stayed behind to rescue those trapped when the first attack began. His face was covered in soot, but his eyes burned with determination. "Every person we save matters," he said. "Even if it's just one, we have to try." Hyun-woo joined the effort, helping lift debris and carry injured civilians to safer areas. Ga assisted with first aid, calming frightened children and tending to minor injuries. Even though the task seemed overwhelming, they worked tirelessly. Their actions inspired others around them. More people joined, creating a chain of cooperation that spread through the city. By midday, the team reached an abandoned research facility on the outskirts of the city. The building had survived the alien attacks relatively intact. Inside, Bohr quickly set up equipment to scan and analyze the alien energy signals that had destroyed much of the city. Min-seok reviewed flight patterns he had observed from the ships. Hyun-woo examined structural weaknesses in buildings that could be used strategically in defense. "Look at this," Biora said, pointing to a screen displaying energy readings. "The aliens' weapons are powerful, but they aren't perfect. There are small delays between firing and impact. If we can time our actions, we might be able to exploit these gaps." Min-seok frowned. "It's not much, but it's something. Every advantage counts." Hyun-woo thought for a moment. "We could use their own energy against them. If we can direct it, maybe we can damage smaller ships or create distractions." Biora's eyes widened. "It's risky, but it might work. We need to test it carefully." Meanwhile, Gia was helping organize supplies in another part of the facility. She had set up small stations for food, water, and medical care. Survivors brought in others who were injured or lost, and slowly, a small but organized community formed inside the building. Even in the face of destruction, humanity's instinct to care for each other persisted. Outside, the alien ships continued their patrols. They hovered silently above the city, scanning for any signs of resistance. The humans could see them, but could not engage directly. Yet the presence of these ships was not entirely oppressive anymore. People had begun to understand patterns, noticing when drones moved together, when they paused, and when they changed altitude. Min-seok believed that these patterns could be predicted and possibly used to humanity's advantage. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly. Hyun-woo and Boyera conducted experiments with alien energy readings. Min-seok trained small groups of volunteers to recognize and report alien ship movements. Got organized medical aid and coordinated volunteers to help the injured. Daehyun lead rescue operations, bringing survivors from dangerous zones to safety. Word of their efforts spread. Other survivors, inspired by their determination, began forming resistance groups across Seoul. Ordinary people became leaders and strategists, using creativity and human ingenuity to survive and fight back. Engineers modified vehicles to be mobile shelters or defense platforms. Civilians fashioned simple tools and barriers that could disrupt alien scanning equipment. One evening, as the sun set behind the smog-filled horizon, Hyun-woo gathered the core team in the facility's control room. "We've learned a lot, but we need more," he said. "The aliens are powerful, but they are predictable in some ways. If we can study them, we can find weaknesses. We need to act before they strike again." Biora nodded. "I've been analyzing the energy signals. The main ships rely on centralized control. If we can disrupt that control, even slightly, we can give humanity an advantage." Min-seok added, "I've also noticed that their drones hesitate when encountering unexpected obstacles. We can create decoys or traps." The team began to plan coordinated strikes, small at first, to test their theories. Hyun-woo and Bora worked on a device that could interfere with alien energy beams. Min-seok trained volunteers to operate it, while Ga and Daehyun prepared evacuation and medical support. Each step was dangerous, but everyone understood the risks. They were no longer just survivors. They were the first spark of resistance. Outside the facility, people began to notice small victories. Drones that had terrorized neighborhoods were being disrupted by clever traps and improvised shields. Small groups of humans managed to divert alien attention, buying time for others to escape or regroup. The aliens seemed confused by human unpredictability, something they had not encountered in other civilizations. As the days passed, the team expanded their efforts. Communication with other resistance groups in the city became possible through makeshift networks. Information about alien movements, weaknesses, and patterns spread quickly. Humans were learning, adapting, and evolving faster than the alien invaders had anticipated. Hyanwu often stayed up late at night, analyzing data and discussing strategies with Biora. They experimented with combinations of human intuition and technology to disrupt alien operations. Minseok trained new recruits in guerrilla tactics, while GA ensured that the medical needs of volunteers and survivors were met. Daehyun continued to lead rescue missions in dangerous areas, saving lives even under alien fire. One day, the team received news that aliens were preparing to attack a nearby district. Hyanwu and Minseok devised a plan to lure drones into a trap using decoy devices that emitted energy signatures similar to human technology. Biora calculated the timing carefully, and Bio prepared medical stations to treat any casualties. The operation was dangerous. Success would demonstrate that humans could fight back effectively. The plan was executed with precision. Drones were drawn into the decoy zones, and for the first time, humans managed to disable several alien units without direct confrontation. The small victory spread quickly, boosting morale across the city. Civilians who had previously hidden in fear began participating in resistance efforts. Showing courage and creativity, Hyanwu realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technology alone, but imagination, unity, and determination. The aliens had assumed that humans would be predictable, weak, and easily controlled. They had underestimated the resourcefulness of ordinary people working together. As night fell once more, the team gathered in the facility. Exhausted but determined, they reflected on what had been achieved. "We can do this," Hyanwu said quietly. "It won't be easy, but humans are not meant to give up." Ga smiled, her eyes shining with resolve. "We will protect our families, our friends, and our home. That's what matters." Bora added, "The aliens are powerful, yes, but we are learning faster than they expect. Every small success gives us hope and experience." Minseok nodded. "And the more people join us, the stronger we become. This city may be damaged, but it is not defeated." Outside, the alien ships continued to hover silently. They observed the city, unaware that humans were no longer passive victims. Resistance had begun, small but growing. Each experiment, each rescue, each act of courage was a step toward, proving that humanity was unpredictable, resourceful, and strong. As the night deepened, Hyanwu looked at the stars beyond the alien ships and thought about the future. The battles ahead would be harder, the sacrifices greater, but humanity had discovered its true power. It was not in weapons alone, but in courage, creativity, and unity. The Galaxy Empire had attacked Earth, but humans were beginning to fight back in ways the invaders could not have imagined. The city slept uneasily, yet a quiet determination filled the hearts of those who had survived. People were no longer just trying to survive, they were learning to resist. Each day brought new challenges, but also new hope. Humanity had taken its first real steps toward showing the galaxy what it was capable of. And somewhere in the dark sky, alien commanders observed the humans, unaware that the most dangerous force on Earth was not technology, but the human spirit itself. The days following the first victories were tense but filled with purpose. Humanity had tasted a small measure of success, and that taste made the survivors hungrier for more. Hyanwu, Minseok, Biora, and Daehyun moved through the city carefully, observing alien activity and planning further actions. Even though the alien ships dominated the sky, humans were beginning to understand that power alone did not guarantee control. Hyanwu spent hours studying alien energy patterns with Bora. "The shields are strong," he said. frowning at the readings, but they fluctuate when the ships move at high speed. If we can time it correctly, we can create openings. Biora nodded, her fingers flying over the tablet. Yes, and there are smaller drones that patrol independently. They react slower when they sense anomalies and energy signals. If we can manipulate those signals, we can trap or confuse them. Minseok trained small groups of volunteers, teaching the M to move quickly, observe patterns, and coordinate without speaking. Many were ordinary civilians, teachers, store clerks, students, and engineers. They were not soldiers, yet determination and necessity had made them formidable. Daehyun led rescue operations, bringing people from destroyed buildings to safer areas, and often providing guidance on makeshift shelters and barriers. Each day, the small network of humans grew stronger, more organized, and more confident. In one abandoned laboratory, Hyunwoo and Biora experimented with alien energy fields. They built crude devices to mimic and redirect the energy beams. Using scavenged parts from damaged electronics and machinery, the devices were unstable, but they worked. When Minseok tested them against a small alien drone, the drone froze, disoriented by the interference. It was the first clear sign that humans could directly affect alien technology. G-Ah, meanwhile, focused on the people. She worked tirelessly, tending to the injured and organizing small groups to provide food and water to those trapped in neighborhoods that had not yet been reached. Children who had been separated from their parents were cared for, and frightened adults began to find hope in small acts of solidarity. Humans were discovering that resistance was more than weapons, and tactics it was also compassion and courage. One evening, Hyunwoo noticed a small group of survivors moving cautiously along a damaged street. Among them were Soo-jin, a young teacher, and Yoon-ho, a local shop owner. They were leading children and elderly civilians, using signals to avoid alien patrols. Hyunwoo recognized the intelligence in their approach and invited them to join the core group. "We need everyone who can think and act," he said. "Even small efforts matter," nodded. "People are scared, but if we can show them a way to protect themselves, they will follow. Humans are strong when they work together," Yoon-ho added, "and we know our city. We can use that knowledge to our advantage." The team decided to put their ideas into action. They organized a small strike to disrupt alien drones near the city center. Minseok led the volunteers, using decoys and devices built by Hyunwoo and Bora. Ga and Soo-jin set up medical stations nearby, ready for any casualties. Daehyun guided civilians to safe areas while the plan unfolded. The operation was a mixture of tension and precision. The decoy devices emitted energy signals that confused several drones, forcing them to pause and regroup. Volunteers moved silently, avoiding patrols and luring drones toward zones where energy pulses could disable them. It was dangerous, and some people were injured, but the plan succeeded. Several drones were neutralized, and the humans gained valuable experience in coordinating under pressure. News of the successful strike spread quickly among survivors. People began to believe that humanity was not helpless. Ordinary citizens became active participants in the resistance. Engineers built more decoy devices. Civilians created barriers and traps. The city's spirit was changing. Fear was still present, but it was accompanied by determination and hope. Hyunwoo noticed that the aliens were becoming more cautious. Their drones hesitated, scanning more carefully before attacking. This gave humans additional opportunities to experiment and learn. Bora and Hyunwoo began mapping the alien fleet's movements, creating a network of observations that could predict when and where attacks might occur. One night, as the team gathered in the facility, Hyunwoo spoke to the group. "We've learned that small actions can have a big impact. Each success makes them less confident, and that is something we can use. But we must continue to adapt. The alien forces are still stronger than us, and we cannot be careless." Daehyun added, "We've also learned that ordinary humans can do extraordinary things. Courage and creativity are weapons they cannot measure or anticipate. If we can keep learning and improving, we can survive and even fight back." Ga looked around at the group. "We have families, friends, and neighbors," depending on us. That gives us strength. Every person we help, every life we save, adds to our power. The aliens may have technology, but we have something they cannot understand: humanity. The following days were filled with careful observation, small skirmishes, and continuous experimentation. Hyen Wu and Bora refined their devices, making them more effective against drones. Minseok trained new recruits in stealth and coordination. Gi organized relief operations and provided training on first aid. Daehyun led daring rescues, often under the threat of alien fire. Sujin and Yunho helped organize civilians, teaching them to protect themselves and support the resistance. Through these efforts, humans began to develop new strategies. Decoys, traps, and improvised barriers were combined with coordinated movements to disrupt alien patrols. Even small victories had a significant effect. Survivors became more confident, and the aliens, faced with unexpected resistance, grew cautious. Hyen Wu began to realize that humans were learning at an extraordinary pace. They adapted quickly, using creativity and teamwork to counter technological superiority. Every experiment, every mission, every act of courage contributed to a growing knowledge base. Humanity was evolving in real time to face a threat that had seemed impossible to overcome. One evening, a message arrived from another part of the city. A group of survivors had managed to capture an alien drone and were seeking advice on what to do with it. Hyen Wu and Bora saw an opportunity. They coordinated a plan to study the drone safely, hoping to gain more insight into alien technology. Volunteers were mobilized to transport the drone to the facility under strict precautions. Over the next few days, the team carefully examined the captured drone. They discovered that its energy shields were controlled by a central system in the larger ships. If the control signal could be disrupted, the shields would fail temporarily. This was a breakthrough. Hyunwoo realized that they now had a way to make even small human forces effective against the larger alien fleet. With this knowledge, the group began planning larger coordinated strikes. Minseok trained volunteers in small units, each capable of independent action but connected through signals and strategy. Ga prepared for increased casualties and medical needs. Daehyun organized evacuation routes and safe zones for civilians. Sujin and Yunho coordinated information gathering and recruitment of new volunteers. Despite the danger, the city's spirit was rising. Humans were learning to fight back in ways the aliens could not anticipate. The resistance was no longer just a few survivors hiding. It was becoming an organized force capable of coordinated action. Every person, from children to elders, had a role to play. Creativity, courage, and cooperation were the true weapons of humanity. Hyenwoo reflected on the transformation. The city, once paralyzed by fear, had become a network of hope and resilience. The alien ships, powerful as they were, faced an enemy they could not fully understand. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and united. They adapted, learned, and used every advantage available as the sun set one evening. Hyenwoo and Gia stood on the rooftop of the facility, looking out over the city. Fires still burned in some areas, and smoke drifted across the horizon. But there was movement, people helping each other, coordinating, and preparing for the next challenge. "We've come a long way," Ga said softly. "But this is only the beginning." Hyenwoo nodded. "The aliens may control the sky, but we control the spirit of this city. That is something they cannot defeat. We have learned, we have adapted, and we will continue to grow stronger." The night was filled with quiet determination. Humans slept in shifts, always vigilant, always ready to respond. The alien ships continued to patrol, unaware that their presence had sparked the rise of a new force. Resistance had become more than survival, it had become a statement. Humanity was no longer passive. They were learning to fight back. Hyenwoo thought about the days ahead. There would be more battles, more challenges, and more sacrifices. But humanity had discovered a truth the aliens did not understand: the power of the human spirit. Intelligence, creativity, courage, and unity were forces that could rival any technology. The small victories of the past days were only the beginning of a larger struggle, as the city settled into an uneasy night. Haiyan-Wu looked to the sky. The alien ships glimmered faintly against the stars. Unaware that the humans below were no longer simply hiding, they were preparing to fight. Humanity had found its strength, and the Galaxy Empire was about to learn that even the smallest humans could make the impossible possible. The city was no longer the same. Broken buildings and burnt-out streets served as reminders of the alien attack, but life persisted. People had adapted to a new rhythm, moving cautiously through damaged neighborhoods, yet filled with purpose. Haiyan-Wu and Ga, along with Minseok, Bo-Ra, Daehyun, Sujin, and Yunho, were at the center of this growing effort. Each day brought new challenges, yet every challenge also revealed a new opportunity to strike back at the invaders. Haiyan-Wu spent the morning in the facility with Bor, analyzing data from the captured alien drone. They discovered something remarkable. The control signals for the alien shields were not only centralized, but they also had a timing sequence that repeated every few minutes. "This is it," Haiyan-Wu said, eyes shining with excitement. "If we can synchronize our attacks with these intervals, we can exploit the gaps in their defenses." Biora nodded, carefully checking the calculations. "It will require precise timing and coordination, but it is possible. The drones can be vulnerable if we act at the right moment." Minseok gathered volunteers in a large hall. Young men and women, many of whom had never held a weapon or faced danger before, listened intently. "We have a plan," he said firmly. "We've learned the aliens' patterns. They are powerful, but they have weaknesses. Each of you will have a role. Timing and teamwork are everything. Remember, we fight together or we fail together." The volunteers nodded, determination in their eyes. G-AH coordinated medical stations across the city. Every volunteer was trained to assist, and each safe zone had been stocked with food, water, and first aid supplies. She moved swiftly, checking on patients, organizing teams, and giving words of encouragement. People had begun to understand that survival was not just about hiding, it was about acting wisely and together. Daehyun led a group into a heavily AH district to prepare escape routes and secure civilians. The streets were dangerous, filled with debris and scattered alien patrol drones. Yet his knowledge of the city, combined with courage and careful observation, allowed him to guide civilians safely. Along the way, they rescued trapped families. And even those who had lost hope began to see glimmers of possibility. Sujin and Yunho worked with volunteers to create small barricades, alarms, and traps. They used debris, old electronics, and whatever materials were available. Every small obstacle slowed the alien drones and allowed humans to control the flow of movement in the streets. It was laborious work, but it made a tangible difference. The humans were learning to adapt their environment into a form of defense. The first test of the coordinated plan began just before noon. Drones had been observed patrolling a sector near the city center, where large crowds of civilians had taken shelter. Haiyan-Wu and Biora prepared their devices to interfere with the alien energy shields, while Minseok and volunteers set up decoys to draw drones into vulnerable positions. Timing was critical. Everyone understood the stakes. As the operation unfolded, drones approached the city center. Volunteers triggered decoys, emitting energy signals similar to human electronics. The drones hesitated, scanning for threats. Haiyan-Wu and Bora activated the interference devices. For a few moments, the drones were confused, their shields faltering at exactly the right intervals. Volunteers moved in, capturing or disabling drones that had been terrorizing the area. The operation was dangerous, but it worked. Several drones were neutralized, and the humans achieved a level of success that no one had expected. Civilians watched in amazement. People who had cowered in fear began to understand that action, planning, and courage could make a difference. Volunteers cheered quietly as the drones fell, careful not to draw attention from other patrolling units. The city had seen its first organized counterattack. Small, but significant. The team gathered afterward to review the results. We've learned more than just defeating a few drones, Haiyan-Wu said. We've learned that humans can work together in ways the aliens cannot predict. We can use strategy, timing, and creativity to level the playing field. Biora added, and every experiment we conduct gives us new knowledge. Every small victory is a step toward larger ones. Over the next few days, the resistance expanded its reach. Volunteers trained others, forming small units capable of independent operations. Civilian networks shared information on alien patrols, energy patterns, and strategies that worked. Humans were no longer simply surviving, they were learning to fight intelligently. One night, Haiyan-Wu and the core team observed alien activity from the facility's rooftop. The ships moved cautiously, as if sensing the resistance, but not fully understanding it. Haiyan-Wu's gaze lingered on a mothership hovering above the city, its massive silhouette reflected in the smoke and debris below. He realized that the aliens had underestimated humanity's ingenuity. They expected fear and surrender, but humans had instead adapted, learned, and fought back with resourcefulness. G-AS spoke softly. They may have advanced technology, but we have something they cannot understand. Creativity, courage, and unity. These are our weapons. Haiyan-Wu nodded. And we will use them. This city is just the beginning. If we succeed here, other cities will follow. Minseok's units carried out night missions, using decoys, traps, and timing to disrupt alien patrols. Volunteers moved quietly through the streets, reporting sightings, rescuing civilians, and sabotaging drones whenever possible. Each operation was a test of skill, bravery, and cooperation. Humans were discovering strengths they never knew they had. Bora and Haiyan-Wu continued to refine their devices. They discovered that even a small disruption in the alien energy network could create confusion among multiple drones. This gave human units more opportunities to act. They also realized that patterns of alien behavior were not fixed. The invaders adapted slowly, but humans adapted faster. Observation, creativity, and learning were their greatest strengths. Sujin and Yunho expanded safe zones, setting up medical and supply stations in districts that had been heavily damaged. Volunteers taught civilians to move quietly, protect themselves, and report alien movements. Families, once paralyzed by fear, began participating in small acts of resistance. Even children were involved in simple ways, helping to relay messages or guide others to safety. Daehan led more complex rescue missions, sometimes under direct fire. His experience as a firefighter proved invaluable, as he knew how to navigate dangerous buildings, extinguish fires, and remain calm under pressure. Each successful mission boosted morale, not just among survivors, but within the volunteer units. Haiyan-Wu realized that humanity's advantage is not brute strength, it was the ability to think, adapt, and act unpredictably. The aliens relied on technology and assumed that humans would be conventional and predictable. They did not anticipate strategy born from creativity, courage, and unity. Humans were proving that power alone was not enough to conquer a species. As the days passed, the team planned a larger operation. Using their knowledge of alien energy signals, volunteers would attempt to disable a section of the alien fleet temporarily. This operation required precise coordination, timing, and courage. It was the most ambitious plan yet, but success would demonstrate to humans and aliens alike that Earth's defenders were capable of organized, intelligent resistance. Preparation began at dawn. Volunteers were assigned roles, equipment was checked, and medical stations were readied. Everyone understood the risks. Fear was present, but it was now accompanied by determination. Humans had learned that preparation, observation, and cooperation were key. The operation commenced in the afternoon. Drones were drawn into decoys while interference devices disrupted their shields. Volunteers moved quickly, capturing and disabling several units. Timing was perfect, and the plan worked better than anticipated. Civilians watched from safe areas, realizing that humans could fight intelligently against a far superior force. Haiyan-Wu and Bora analyzed the results immediately. "This proves it," Haiyan-Wu said. "We can challenge them. We can fight back," Biora added. "Every experiment, Every small success gives us knowledge and confidence. Humans are learning faster than they realize. By nightfall, the city was quieter, but a sense of hope filled the air. People no longer only survived, they planned, acted, and resisted. The alien ships continued to hover, observing, unaware that the humans below had begun to change the rules of engagement. Hyun-woo looked at Ga and said, "We've learned something important. The aliens may have weapons, but they do not have our spirit. We have courage, creativity, and unity. That is more powerful than any technology." Ga nodded. "And we will continue to grow stronger. We are learning, adapting, and preparing for whatever comes next." The night settled over the city, broken buildings and firelight reflecting human resilience. Every action, every rescue, every small victory was proof that humans were no longer passive. Resistance had grown from fear into intelligence, courage, and strategy. The Galaxy Empire had attacked Earth, but they had underestimated the most dangerous force of all, the human spirit. As the stars shone above the alien ships, Hyun-woo felt a sense of determination. The coming days would be harder, the battles greater, but humanity had discovered a truth the invaders could not comprehend. Humans could learn, adapt, and fight with ingenuity and unity. The city had survived, and humanity was preparing to show the galaxy its true power. The city was changing. Broken streets and burnt buildings remained, but people had begun to move with purpose instead of fear. Volunteers patrolled neighborhoods. Families helped each other. Survivors had begun to organize in ways that were both clever and effective. Hyun-woo, Min-seok, Biora, Dae-hyun, Soo-jin, and Yen-ho worked tirelessly at the center of the effort, coordinating, training, and experimenting. Every day brought new challenges, but humans were no longer passive victims. They were becoming an organized, resourceful force. Hyun-woo spent long hours in the research facility, studying alien energy patterns. Biora worked alongside him, refining the devices that could interfere with alien shields. They discovered that even a slight disruption in the energy fields could create confusion among multiple drones. It was dangerous work, but every successful test strengthened their understanding. "We can do more than just defend ourselves," Hyun-woo said, eyes fixed on the data. "We can take the fight to them." Biora nodded. "We have the tools, and we are learning faster than they expect. Every experiment makes us stronger." Min-seok trained volunteers relentlessly. Ordinary citizens, some never having touched weapons before, now moved with skill, precision, and caution. They learned to observe patterns, communicate silently, and execute strategies that leveraged their knowledge of the city and human ingenuity. Speed, timing, and teamwork, Min-seok instructed. That is what will make us effective. The aliens may be strong, but they cannot predict everything we do. G oversaw medical and relief efforts. Each safe zone had volunteers trained in first aid, water, and food distribution, and emergency care. Children who had been terrified a week before now helped guide others to safety or assisted in carrying supplies. The human spirit was proving itself more powerful than any fear the alien attackers could impose. Dae-hyun led daring rescue missions, guiding survivors from dangerous areas to the relative safety of the city's safe zones. He navigated collapsed buildings, unstable structures, and the unpredictable presence of alien patrols. His experience as a firefighter allowed him to stay calm under pressure, and every successful rescue inspired those around him. Volunteers who had never faced danger were now learning to act decisively, to trust each other, and to adapt quickly. Soo-jin and Yoon-ho worked tirelessly on the city's defenses. Barricades, improvised alarms, and traps slowed alien drones, and volunteers learned how to use the environment to their advantage. Even small successes had an outsized effect, as drones hesitated or moved cautiously, unsure of what humans would do next. Every blocked street, every trapped drone, and every disrupted patrol built momentum for the resistance. Hyun-woo and Biora discovered that the alien motherships relied heavily on a central command system. If they could disrupt this control, even temporarily, it could make smaller ships vulnerable. This revelation changed the team's strategy. They realized that coordinated strikes were now not just possible, they could be decisive. It required careful planning, timing, and precision. The first coordinated strike was planned meticulously. Volunteers were divided into small units, each with a clear role. Minseok led one team responsible for guiding decoy devices into positions that would attract drones. Hyenwoo and Biora prepared interference devices to disrupt alien shields at the exact right moment. Ga ensured medical readiness, while Daehyan coordinated civilian evacuation and safety measures. Sujin and Yunho managed barricades and safe routes. The day of the operation arrived. Drones patrolled the streets, as usual, searching for threats. Volunteers moved quietly, placing decoy devices and preparing interference equipment. As the first drones approached, the devices emitted energy signals that mimicked human activity. The drones hesitated, scanning the surroundings. At that precise moment, Hyunwoo activated the interference devices. The drone shields flickered, faltered, and then failed. Volunteers moved in, capturing or disabling them with improvised weapons and traps. The operation was risky, but it succeeded. Drones were disabled and the humans learned more about alien patterns and weaknesses. Civilians who had previously hidden began to see the value of coordinated action. Ordinary people became active participants in the resistance, understanding that intelligence, creativity, and courage were their most important weapons. Over the next several days, the team expanded these operations. More volunteers were trained, safe zones were strengthened, and additional interference devices were created. The city became a network of resistance, with humans acting together in ways the alien invaders could not predict. Even small victories had a powerful psychological effect, giving hope and confidence to those who had feared they were powerless. Hyenwoo realized that humans were learning at an extraordinary pace. Unlike the alien invaders, humans could adapt quickly, using creativity, observation, and ingenuity to overcome technological superiority. Biora noted that humans were exploiting weaknesses that the aliens had not considered. "They expect us to fight like other civilizations," she said. "But humans are unpredictable. We learn, we adapt, and we act in ways they cannot foresee." Minseo continued training volunteers, focusing on coordination and strategic thinking. Civilians who had once been terrified of the alien forces were now becoming skilled in observation, communication, and tactical movement. Each small success made the volunteers more confident and the alien drones more cautious. Humans were learning to control the battlefield in ways the invaders had not anticipated. Gaia's role was equally critical. She ensured that no one was left behind, that every injured person received care, that volunteers remained motivated and safe. She taught people that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Children, elders, and ordinary civilians began to feel empowered, contributing in small ways that added up to significant results. Daehyan led increasingly complex rescue missions. He and his teams navigated dangerous areas, sometimes under alien fire, and brought survivors to safe zones. Each mission strengthened the bond between volunteers, and each successful rescue reinforced the idea that human ingenuity and bravery could challenge even the most technologically advanced enemies. Sujin and Yunho expanded their network of safe zones and defensive measures. Barricades were reinforced, alarms became more sophisticated, and traps grew more effective. Volunteers were taught to think creatively, using every resource available to manipulate the environment in their favor. The city, once paralyzed by fear, was now a living, organized resistance network. Hyenwoo and Biora continued to refine their interference devices. They discovered that even a small miscalculation could be deadly. But when used correctly, the devices could disable multiple drones simultaneously. This knowledge allowed the resistance to plan larger, coordinated strikes. Timing, strategy, and precision became the foundation of humanity's growing strength. One morning, a message arrived from another district. Survivors there had captured an alien drone and needed advice on how to study it safely. Hyenwoo and Bora saw an opportunity. Volunteers were mobilized to transport the drone to the facility, taking extreme precautions. Studying the drone revealed more about alien technology, including the limitations of their shields and the timing of their energy pulses. Every new piece of knowledge increased the humans' ability to fight effectively. The resistance continued to grow. Volunteers trained others, civilians shared information, and safe zones became hubs of strategy and learning. Humans were no longer passive. They were proactive, adaptive, and creative. The alien invaders had expected submission, but instead, they faced a species that was learning and evolving in real time. Heian-Wu realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons alone. It was in imagination, cooperation, and courage. The aliens had powerful technology, but they could not predict human creativity. Each small victory reinforced the lesson. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and capable of overcoming obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Minseok organized a large-scale training exercise, simulating coordinated strikes against alien patrols. Volunteers practiced using decoys, interference devices, and improvised weapons, learning to move in coordinated units and communicate silently. Even civilians, who had never faced danger before, were becoming capable. Confident participants, G-A, continued to oversee medical operations, ensuring that injured volunteers received care and that civilians were protected. She taught resilience, patience, and the importance of teamwork. Children and elders contributed where they could, reinforcing the idea that everyone had a role to play. Daehyun led more rescue operations, often under fire, navigating the complex and dangerous streets of the city. Each successful mission strengthened morale, demonstrating that humans could coexist